as entrepreneurs and as mentors or coaches, or however you frame the service that you provide, part of that is keeping our brains sharp and always educating ourselves and sharpening our skills in how to impart that knowledge on other people.
Welcome to Unplugged, the tech podcast for digital entrepreneurs. I am one of your hosts, Brooke, the founder of the Sober Biz Collective.
Hey podcasters, I'm Nate Kelly, best-selling author and founder of Pod Studio. If you're looking for tips, tools, and tech on how to utilize podcasting for your business, you're in the right spot. Let's get unplugged. I, for a couple months, was in this phase of kind of like dread of being an entrepreneur and not having as many clients as I want or need. And need is subjective because need for what? To have extra money to go on vacation and buy things. And so it's like needing, is subjective. Am I making a living? Yes. So I was like working myself up and triggering my anxiety and like, going through all these scenarios in my head about not being where I wanted to, not being where I want to be as an entrepreneur, or my business not yet being where I wanted to be ultimately. But I came to the realization last week after some quiet time, and some meditation and some reflection that, I'm so lucky to be able to be doing this. And, uh, that I took this risk to step into entrepreneurship and that I even have clients and people that I've worked with in the past are happy and referring other people. And, I'm progressing and growing still. I was looking at traditionally glass half empty when I've got some shit in my glass. You know what I mean? It may not be halfway full, but it's a little bit full, and it's, I'm still pouring into it. I had a shift this week in gratitude specifically related to business and entrepreneurship. So digital entrepreneurs out there are ups and downs for sure. And I think, keeping in mind that, coming from corporate America and never really finding my spot or like a home or my niche there, for me to be able to really do what I love every day and to help other people and to share my message on different platforms. Very grateful, and just got to keep pouring in the cup, right?
Mm-hmm. I remember I went to like a film course to learn documentary filmmaking. And afterwards they're asking like, what do you want to do with this? And I wanted to go take marketing courses because they gave you a certain amount of money to actually go further your education and take another course. And everyone was going to get their like um flagging courses and stuff so they could work on movie sets. And I'm like, no, I want to go get a marketing course.
Yeah.
Because I want to help people create things for their business and like do marketing videos and that kind of stuff. Like I feel like that would be so much more fun. And it didn't exist back then. That wasn't a job. And they were like, you should try wedding videography or something else. Like they were trying to deter me from this, right? And I was like, yeah, but that's so much pressure. I ended up doing it.
Right. I was like, wait, didn't you do that?
I did, yeah. But this ended up being a job. Like how crazy is it that this is a actual career and it's in demand and it is like something I can do to make a living
Right.
if I can, just work on myself so I have the capacity to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and take on these clients and more work and that kind of stuff. I find has been the biggest struggle in the last few years, but
Yeah.
but the
Well,
fact that this is even a possibility
yeah.
is absolutely a miracle. I would never have guessed that all of this would be so available to us today to create these careers online.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were ahead of the curve. They tried to deter you of a lucrative, in demand, um, job, but you found your way there eventually. Another thing I go back and forth on is, the scope of my business now. And, obviously it's not always going to be in demand as far as podcast production, but continuing my own education and being versatile and being able to transition and move with the trends and, continue to add services that I offer and, authority within different niches and industries. And I love doing that. I know you love doing that. You're like the course queen. So I think as long as we remain open and sort of flexible with, keeping our businesses relevant, um, we will always have a place, I think.
Absolutely. I wanna touch on that a little because I think that's something I felt a lot of shame over, is that always seeking different things, trying new things, learning new things, and not being able to, like, pick a direction and really stick to it and get super good at one thing. That felt like a defect to me for a long time, like, I didn't understand that I didn't know I had ADHD first of all.
Yeah, a couple things at play here.
Yeah. And I didn't understand how other people could just, like, get a job and be there and be happy and not wanna, like, change. Like, I was all like, when I was a receptionist, I was learning how to become a salesperson, and I wanted to get into sales, and I wanted a promotion, and I couldn't sit still in one thing, and then once I learned it, I was, like, kinda done with it, and I
Yeah,
wanted to move
like,
on to the next thing, right?
boring.
And because of that, like, I've been a filmmaker, I've worked in weddings, I've owned a thrift store, I've, like, done all this random stuff, had different podcasts, I've been making websites since grade 7, like, it's just for all these different things, right? And I didn't understand how it was all gonna come together or what the purpose was it w of it all was. And, through the pandemic, I did like meditation certificates, sober coaching certificates, like life coaching certificates. I didn't use any of it for anything, and I'm like, what is all this for? Why do I have all of this? And now when my clients come to me, it's all those things I've learned make me the best person to help them create their brands and their businesses. And by helping others, I've been able to help even more people than if it was just me doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it just became like this light bulb moment of like, oh, this is why I was put on this earth is to learn all this stuff so I can help other people, navigate their own businesses and brands.
Yeah, I think there's a piece to that as well. As entrepreneurs and as mentors, I guess, in a way, or coaches, or however you frame, the service that you provide. Part of that is kind of keeping our brains sharp and always educating ourselves and sharpening our skills and how to impart that knowledge on other people. And this course could teach you, it could be a podcasting course, but you come away with it learning how to inspire other people, or you take a marketing class but you come away with a click funnel, expertise. There are these different ways to obtain knowledge. And I think, especially in this sort of digital education kind of mode that we are in with the
Mhm.
master classes and, the coaching programs and all of this content and consumption that is available. I think it's ours to take away what, we get from it, and just
Mhm.
kind of remain sharp, keep our brains sharp. And, that translates into how we, then can help our clients.
And it is, especially as a digital entrepreneur, it's never ending. Like there is always something to learn. You're never done. The platform I use for web design just came out with a completely new development system, and I'm like obsessed with learning everything I can about it right now and eventually transitioning all my clients over there because they've got these really cool scroll features and like different things that are going to make design a lot more interactive for your clients that are coming
Wait,
onto
are
your
we
site,
talking
right?
about Wix?
We're talking about Wix Studio, yeah. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
their new platform. So I'm, like, obsessed with learning about it, and then here's the thing, like, I learn these things, I wanna do courses so bad because I feel like what a great way to utilize all these things that I am learning is to, like, then put them in a package to teach specifically my niche, which is sober entrepreneurs, all of this juice, and be like, "Here, this is how you do this." The problem is by the time I'm done recording something, there's a new tool. There's like a new there's a new system and new platforms even through Wix, right? So, yeah. So that's been a struggle for me, but 100% I want to get into templates because the one thing about being an entrepreneur is I cannot scale my time or my ability. I'd have to hire other people in order to bring on more clients. So I have a real big cap on what I'm able to accomplish from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday when my kids are in school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, because I have all of this time and energy and then I have none, I think throwing together like really specific templates for my clients is going to be such a better use of my time, so that I can work really, really hard when I have this capacity. And then I can take time off and just focus on creating content and funneling people in there. That is my dream for 2024 is to really implement that system. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
could become a boss and just get employees, but
I
it feels
know.
like
I
a much
know.
bigger.
Yeah, that's important to think about, when you're kind of framing your business is what portion of, your day or what portion of your product or service is scalable or sustainable.
Mm,
On the production side of Pod Studio, there's very finite amount of time that we can spend on editing or um, you know, packaging a podcast episode. But, there's kind of endless possibility to your point of packaging website templates and creating a funnel and a marketing sort of strategy that could also
mhm,
ultimately turn that kind of into like passive income. That side of the business is kind of infinite, but there, on the other hand, there are finite things that um, specifically like service-based things, I think that, um, require time and there are only 24 hours in a day. So think about that when you're kind of planning your business and deciding how to scale too, because that will, pull you back in some areas.
100%. And your podcast is going to be your biggest marketing tool for your scalable content, or your scalable products, because podcasts are like evergreen content, right? And get out to large masses of people, hopefully.
Yeah,
Having like something they can go click, purchase, and get value from you right away is such a valuable thing to be able to offer your audience. So if you do have like evergreen passive income, like downloadable guides, courses, templates, things that someone listening to that episode are going to want and need that you can provide them, like what a great tool. Podcasts have the best rate of
I know what you're talking about, like the like conversion, right? Of
conversion,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like emails and podcasts are the top 2 that will actually convert into sales. Social media is the worst. Pinterest is actually pretty good,
Social media is
especially.
awful with the exception of
Yeah.
YouTube, I guess, which
Okay.
is it social media or is it like a search engine? It's hard to
It's more of a search engine and it's run
yeah,
by Google, so it's a pretty
yeah,
good. Yeah.
which
Also,
is evergreen as opposed to social media, like Reels. No one's going on Reels to search for like podcast tips, but they are most likely going to go to YouTube and search
yeah.
podcast tips. So if you take your podcast a step further and turn it into a video podcast, then it's evergreen on YouTube as well, which would factor into that conversion too.
Yeah. Exactly. I think, SEO wise, like YouTube is king for content. But TikTok is coming up to that as well. Like I noticed if you go on Google now and you search for things, you will get TikTok videos recommended to
I
you as well now.
noticed that last week.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, yeah, wow.
Do what's happening with the states and TikTok? How is that all playing out? Any
Yeah,
answers?
so no real updates since we talked last about it. I think it's been like submitted to be seen by the Senate. It was passed by the House of Representatives and now goes on to the Senate. They have, it seems like they barely work. They're like teachers, they have a spring break, they have a summer break, they have a Christmas break. I don't think they may be on spring break right now. It's scheduled to be seen by the Senate, I think later in the spring. So no real update, but it's still hot button item, and the interviews that I've seen with senators, I follow a couple of like the news TikTokers like V Under the Desk. Do you know? She does the podcast and the news updates. Anyway, some reputable like newscaster TikTokers went to Washington and did like quick TikToks to try to catch like the senators like in their offices or between meetings and asking them about the ban. And sort of off the record, it seems like most senators are in favor of, if we aren't able to purchase a portion of TikTok, then to ban it. So we shall
Wow.
see.
Yeah, that's a tough thing when you're growing a business and you're relying on these platforms to reach your audience. It can like, the
Yeah.
fact that the government has such a role in that, that's a little terrifying. I know for us in Canada, I think I talked about this before, but we can't see news on Facebook anymore. So, unless it's American, we're not allowed to share any content from news publications here because,
Okay, that
the
kind of
Canadian.
makes sense because even even like CNN or like Fox News is definitely skewed toward their own demographic. Like Fox News is very Republican heavy, and they kind of like change the wording of titles or the way that they present the news to favor their candidate or whatever on the political
Mhm.
side of things. And now with AI, you can create any news story you want. So I feel like that kind of makes sense.
Well, that's not the reason they did it. They did it because Facebook won't pay our news publications for using their content.
Oh, for like,
So,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
so in the States, they pay the news sources because they're
Interesting.
producing content, but in Canada, there was no money going back into Canada, so they were like, "You can't use our content
F
on
you.
your platform," and they took it off, and it's not good because we're not able to share information with each other, if
Yeah.
there's things going on that are big and we wanna, like, make sure everybody knows about them, you can't share, you have to, like, create something about it.
I do feel for the small business owners and entrepreneurs who are so heavily reliant on TikTok. That could affect them largely. But then, on the other side of it, it's like as an entrepreneur or business owner, should we be so heavily reliant on one source, or how do we kind of diversify our marketing to, reach our audience in more than just one singular way? So I hope that it doesn't, and hopefully they take that into consideration. I think as a reason to not ban it is the generation of funds for not only small business, but I think the economy as a whole. Um, but yeah, lesson to entrepreneurs: diversify your marketing strategies.
I mean, the best route to go is to get people off of your platforms and onto your website, your email list, that kind of stuff. Like, have a membership, have a group, have a newsletter, email subscriber list, or somewhere that you can get their information
Right.
off of these platforms. Because not only are you at risk of like government legislation, but also technology is not the most reliable thing in the world, and often Meta is crashing, and you
Yeah.
don't know when we're going to go a day without Facebook or whatever, and if that's what you're relying to connect with your consumers, your customers, then you could have big issues. But if you have them on an email list, you own that list and you're able to communicate with them and send out your deals, send out your upcoming courses, whatever it is, right? I know some people that were doing a huge launch right as Facebook like crashed for it was like a day or something,
Oh,
and it ruined everything. Like that was their whole plan was like up in smoke, right?
email list, it's my number one. I mean, it's just this, it's like a community. They have either signed up or agreed or shared with you their email. It's already like a warm environment, if you're kind of mining it correctly. And I don't know. I feel like it's definitely the highest conversion rate for sure, but also um I don't it's like a privilege to show up in someone's inbox, and not be sent to spam or whatnot. Always go with the email list.
Yeah. And I mean, my business, 100% of my success has literally just been from one-on-one human connection, like getting out there, talking to people, meeting people, being on podcasts, digitally or in person. That is how I got clients. Like I didn't even start my business on purpose. It was literally I had these skills that I was using for my own business and people wanted help and support, and then I started helping and supporting people, and then that led to more people and more referrals. And it's it's definitely a scary way to start. I don't know if I recommend it because there was a lot of imposter syndrome happening. I'm
Oh,
like,
yes.
I know everyone's liking what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing, and it's really hard to, like, replicate, right? So, it took a long time to develop some systems, especially because I got so busy right off the bat. So, I definitely recommend taking some time to figure out how do you wanna run your business? What kind of boundaries do you wanna have for yourself and your time? Um, what feels good for you in terms of, like, times that you wanna have your calendar open to have phone calls and stuff, like, what is your energy like in the morning? These things are all really important, and I didn't know any of that when I started.
Same. Yeah. There even anything to like health coverage as an entrepreneur, or yeah, opening my calendar was a big one because at first I'm just like, I'm available, I don't want to limit anyone's the possibility of anyone getting in contact with me. I'm going to be available whenever. And then you realize that people are scheduling things at 8 p.m. or 6 in the morning, and it's not conducive to your point to like when I'm sharpest and ready to like dive into a podcast production plan or whatever it may be. So I think keeping in mind your own sanity and your own work life balance comes into play a lot more as an entrepreneur when the lines are kind of blurred of like when is working time and when isn't. Yeah, so I would hold that sort of sacred, that time that you um, are kind of on the clock versus when you aren't, especially if you're working at home, because then the lines become even more blurred. So
It's a hard thing to turn off when you're an entrepreneur. It's like
it really
yeah,
is.
especially
It
with
is.
kids, it's like fitting all
Oh, I
these
can't
things into little
imagine.
crevices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no difference between I remember being on client calls, and it's, like, the middle of a pandemic, my kids are not in school yet, and I'm sitting there smiling with my, clients, and I'm on mute, and I'm just, like, screaming, like, "What are you guys doing?" With this smile like
Yeah.
a ventriloquist dummy, trying trying not to let my clients know that my kids are about to break something in my kitchen.
Oh, God. Or you're about to break them. I can't
Yeah,
imagine. You were like homeschooling, running a business, wife
yeah.
and mother. Like, oh, God, I can't.
Yeah,
We
and
made
then
it.
it's like a couple things happened too, and it really affected my ability to show up in my business, like family members passing away and all that kind of stuff. And it's really if you have those boundaries and everything, like they help you get through those times. When I was kind of flailing, it was and something big happened that shifted, my daily routine, my capacity, my mental health, then I'm letting people down. I'm not answering emails. I'm not showing up for commitments that I had. And then I'm embarrassed and I don't want to, you know, reach out and tell them what's going on because it feels like, well, this is not business talk. I don't want my
Right.
clients
Right.
to feel like I can't handle this and I'm mentally unstable, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So I end up like ghosting people and then that affects your reputation and it affects your further. So if I could go back and just like tell myself something is to really create those boundaries, to have time set aside just to like hold space for my humanness, like
Yeah. Yeah.
to not have these like high expectations that I'm going to be superwoman every single day. And I heard some really good advice was like to plan for your worst day. So you think about yourself on your worst day and like make your plans based on that so that if you have more capacity in the day, then that's amazing. But if not, you're not going to be drowning and overwhelmed. And that really helped me get through those moments where I was like drowning, and I couldn't even
That's
open my
smart.
computer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Like, oh, if all of that happened, I can handle that. And then
Yeah.
it's like, knock on wood, those days will happen, but they're less frequent than like a good productive day, I would say.
Oh,
So
yeah.
then it's like plan for the worst and be pleasantly surprised by the outcome.
Exactly. It's kind of like under promising and over delivering for
There you
yourself.
go. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for hanging out today. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube for all of our video content at Unplugged Tech Pod.
And join us in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/unplugged podcast. Also, make sure to throw us a 5-star review if you are finding this content valuable for you and your digital business. We accept all forms of reviews, Apple Podcasts, Spotify follows, YouTube telling your grandmother about us.
And make sure to share the episode with one person in your life who may find it valuable. And we'll see you next time on Unplugged.
I think it's good enough, and we're just going to keep getting better.